Howdy, howdy. Again, don't know why I'm still doing this. I'm playing Xenoblade again tonight. Uh, Maybe this is just what this is gonna become. I'd turn it to the screen, but I don't want to give away spoilers. Um, and I am very late game, so forgive me. I'm sorry. This is what I have to do to stay sane. I'm trying to get decent lighting, and it's not working. That's not decent lighting. This thing's too bright. Anyway, sorry if it's dark. I'll try and brighten it up in post, or whatever. Um, and the back camera doesn't do any better. If anything, it's darker. So, yeah, what's going on today? Uh, Not a lot. Um, Still making positive progress with my sleep schedule, I think. I stayed in bed till 1 o'clock, but, I wasn't tired the rest of the day, and 1 is still a lot better than the 3 and 4 I had been sleeping. So who knows, maybe we're making progress against all this after all. I wouldn't hold your breath, though. And some better news when it comes to everything I've been ranting about for the past week. Justifiably so, I think. The current president has managed to set another record. Unfortunately, it's not one he'll be bragging about, I can only imagine. He is now the only U.S. president to ever have been impeached twice. The House passed today. Basically, for people that aren't fully aware how this process works, to the best of my understanding, the articles start in the House, and when if they pass the House by a simple majority of vote, you have been impeached. That's all there is to it. It's up to the Senate to decide consequences. So, basically, consider the House vote a conviction of a crime, or like an arrest, or something like that. They've made a written accusation, and they've approved it, and then it's up to the Senate to sort of be the, not necessarily the court, because they're not, like, ultimately they can't clear him. And it's because it's a bit more, it's a lot more complicated, because it's like, impeachment doesn't, to be impeached, you don't necessarily have to commit a crime. You just have to be unfit for office. Like it's not technically a crime to be bad at your job, but if you are bad at your job, you will be fired. So it's kind of like the House firing you, or attempting to fire you, and then and then it goes up to the Senate as to whether or not actual repercussions will take place. In this case, what we are hoping for is the House to affirm the impeachment, and at that point, we'll just need a simple majority vote to ban the man from ever running for an office again, and that is the point. Because a lot of people are like, what's the point in doing it now? He's only got so many days left. The point is taking this opportunity that honestly the Republican Party needs to take, to totally wash their hands of this man. It is in their best interest to cut every tie with Trump they can, because as it is right now, just because he lost this election doesn't mean he's gone. I was hoping, and it was a vain hope, unfortunately. I was hoping that this loss would devastate him. He would just be entirely despondent from as soon as the race was called, and he would just kind of fade away once he left office. It is very obvious to me now that is a very naive hope. And I guarantee you that if he is not impeached and disbarred from running again, he will run in 2024, or 25, excuse me. No, 24, I'm sorry. And honestly, he might win. Or at the very least, he'll probably win the primary, and we'll have to put up with this again. You have to. It's to the point where even Mitch McConnell is, according to his aides, talking about he's talking about supporting impeachment as an opportunity to make a clean break between Trump and the GOP. Because as it is, he has way too much influence in the party among the voters, and he obviously doesn't stand for Republican values, not true Republican values. He never has. And, this isn't exactly McConnell growing a conscience. Make no mistake about it. McConnell's pissed because Trump's constant rhetoric that the election was stolen lost him control of the Senate. All McConnell cared about was continuing to be majority leader. He is no longer majority leader because both Georgia senators, both Republican senators in Georgia, lost their runoff election. And it is entirely Trump's fault for casting so much doubt on the system. I cannot tell you how many people I heard say, well, if the election's rigged, I'm not even going to vote. It's not even worth it. They're just going to steal it anyway. And that's why Georgia's blue right now. If everyone had actually gone out and voted, they wouldn't have won. They both, the only reason it went to a runoff is because Perdue and Loeffler didn't win by enough of a margin in the general election. I think you have to win by win by a full percent or maybe 5% or something like that. Or either that or neither of them got a total majority. They both had less than 50% from people either voting independent or choosing not to vote that on their ticket or something like that. And that's what led to this runoff, where it's like overtime, basically. And at that point, the specific amount that you need to gain to win rule is gone. So it's basically just no matter what the percentages are, it's just the one who has the most. I don't know. I can't remember exactly, but the point is, if all of these Republicans hadn't been so concerned that the vote was just going to be stolen anyway, and what was the point in voting, Perdue and Loeffler probably would have went back in. So McConnell is absolutely enraged that he is no longer majority leader. And it's at this point that he's, taking his chance to. It's definitely not a moral high ground, and I'm definitely not going to applaud the man because I know ultimately he's just serving his own interests. But that's an important figure to turn because it does not take a simple majority in the Senate. I want to say it's 2/3. Don't quote me on that. Either way, it's not a simple 50% because if it was, the Senate is split 50-50, and in the event of a tie in the Senate, the Vice President is, the way it works is there's 100 representatives in the Senate. If the Senate is divided 50-50, then the Vice President, the Vice President will play the role of tiebreaker. And come Inauguration Day, that's going to be Kamala Harris, and God knows she's not going to protect Trump because she actually has a brain and a spine, unlike his Republican sycophants. who just suck up to him because they don't want him to talk bad about him on Twitter. Well, the good news is he can't do that anymore. So maybe that'll lead a lot of Republicans growing their spine again, since Trump can no longer badmouth them on Twitter. Maybe he'll lose their power over him. I know that's not going to happen, but a man can dream. But just, you know, these people put up with so much so that they can get that coveted positive retweet from Trump, so they can ride his coattails onto that fanatical power he has over his base, when in reality Republicans should be taking this chance to absolutely disown him fully and wholly, so that only his most fanatic of followers remain, and they are definitely not his full majority. And also, with him no longer being able to run for office, you know, he's already lost a lot of his power due to being pretty much banned from social media, which, as I ranted about earlier, I remember if it was last night or a few days ago, does not violate his First Amendment rights, because social media they're privately owned platforms, and it's basically the same concept as standing in your front yard and yelling whatever you want. You can do that on your property, but you can't go in someone else's yard and yell whatever you want, because that's their private property. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, these are all private properties. They all belong to individuals. So, and as I said the other day, when you sign up for these accounts, you agree to the terms of service, and if you break the terms of the service, you lose your account. Period. Frankly, if he wasn't the president, he probably would have lost his account the same time he started spouting all of the lies about the election. And honestly, he probably should have. They probably should have put their foot down there. And, you know, these Republican governors being more mad about that than governors do, but these Republican politicians being more upset about that than the fact that, you know, a angry mob descended on the Capitol building, managed to breach the perimeter and put all of their life. It's just like, how far up Trump's ass do these people have their heads? It's totally ridiculous. And it's like, I'm not going to say I don't like Mitt Romney. I don't know Mitt Romney. I don't like his policies. I don't always agree with him. But he's literally one of these only Republicans, certainly in the Senate, that has always been outspoken about how he feels about Trump and didn't care about the consequences. The day before the vote, Mitt Romney was like heckled for 20 minutes on a plane, where a whole bunch of Trump supporters on their way to that rally and on their way to storm the Capitol, basically, just chanted traitor at him for like 10-15 minutes. It's like, even still, he was I'm pretty sure about this, he was the only Republican to vote to impeach him the first time, and he's constantly been critical of how Trump does not represent the Republican Party. He's just riding on the Republican Party's coattails because he knew it would win him a vote. I'm sorry, Christian Republicans. He doesn't care about your religion, and he doesn't care about your stance on abortion. The man does not care. Like, pro-life and pro-choice mean nothing to him. He's only pro-life because that's what would win him the election. That's it. I'm sorry. He does not. If you are not directly lining his pockets or worshiping him like the people that stormed the Capitol, he doesn't give a shit about you. And you need to stop giving a shit about him. Because it's not healthy. Like, seriously, there are so many conservative Republicans that are just straight up in an abusive relationship with this man. Like, he is abusing them for power, and they're happy to let him do it because he pretends to be Christian, and pretends to be pro-life, and pretends to be small government, and pretends to be, pretends to be a Republican, basically. They'll let him do whatever he wants because he pretends to be these things. And every now and then he'd throw him a bone to keep him satisfied. But he doesn't really care. He doesn't really care. If it's not lining his pockets, and it's not making him feel big and powerful, he doesn't care. I'm sorry. And if you think that's what's best for the country, then you've obviously never been in an abusive relationship or something. Like, I don't know. You have a very loose interpretation of reality, which I believe is how Mitt Romney described Trump. He has a very how did he put it? I think it was a very loose relationship with the truth, or something like that. It was very well put. I refuse to rant. I've already been doing it, but Jesus Christ. I despise how much this ultimately has influenced me, but like, how do you not be influenced by this? How do you not sit there and be enraged? My friend, one of my friends from the Discord that I actually am also friends with on Facebook, because we do know each other personally, I visited before. It was very nice. She made hamburgers. They were amazing. Good night. Sleep good. Alright. She posted, she shared an image that, so like she reposted an image, the top image was an infamous image from the Black Lives Matter protests, where an individual of color, I can't remember, I'm not sure that they were necessarily black, but they were definitely of color, was standing there with his daughter on his shoulders, very young daughter on his shoulders, and a police officer in full riot gear, face shield and everything, was pointing a tear gas grenade launcher in his face, not 2 feet away from the man. And the second image was one of the more infamous images of the terrorists that stormed the Capitol waving the Confederate flag inside the building. And the caption was "Two Americas." And I'd argue the problem is not that there are two Americas, but I would argue that the two Americas depicted in those images are the same, and that's the problem. I guarantee you, the same man who probably thought it was perfectly fine to point a tear gas grenade launcher in the face of someone protesting for Black Lives Matter is probably the same person that thought it was perfectly fine for the Confederate flag to be flown in our building, or that thought it was entirely appropriate that individuals storm the halls of the House and the Senate because the election was stolen. I saw some idiot, and he is an idiot. I don't even know how this showed up in my feed, but it's some YouTube I've never watched. I've never watched any of this person's videos. but for some reason one of their community posts popped up in just my recommended feed, and he was calling for red states to secede. You know that quote about people not knowing history are doomed to repeat it? How just a few years ago we were seeing rhetoric that very much reminded historians of pre-Nazi Germany, the events that led up to Nazi Germany, you know. And it's like now you see people basically calling for a new civil war because some orange piece of garbage didn't win an election. It would be hilarious if it weren't so outraging. Like, if I wasn't so mad about it, I'd be rolling in laughter. Really. But I'm not, because this is the level of, like I said on the day of, I'm disgusted, I'm outraged, I am not surprised. And if I am surprised, it's just that it didn't happen sooner. Honestly, I am surprised it took this long to reach boiling point when you have, not even for the last 4 years, the last 5 years, because it started on the campaign trail for him, got like nearly 5 years of him cultivating this base and pouring fuel on the fire and saying that you have to take things by force, and just working so hard to divide us because he knows he could never unify the nation under him. It would never happen. So instead, he's worked his hardest to drive a wedge between people who insist on being Republican and Democrats and former Republicans that see him for the grifter he is. Because the only thing he could ever unify us in would be frankly, last week should have unified us. He should have been able to finally unify us in a way, I don't know, I wish I had a more articulate way to say this, but basically be unified in not wanting him around anymore, in completely disowning him from politics. Frankly, he should be in jail, and we should be unified in that. And the fact that we're not, and the fact that you have Republicans still saying impeaching him now would cause a greater divide, when literally that rhetoric is the reason there is a divide. That hesitance to hold him responsible because of something someone might do in retaliation, to holding the man account for his crimes. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Because this is the same thing they were saying the last time he was impeached. And, you know, back then, I kind of agreed with him being a martyr thing. I think it was still important that you put your foot down. You have to set the precedent that you can't do this. I've seen people talking about the 14th Amendment, and the thing is, the 14th Amendment was basically drafted so Confederate leaders could not hold political offices. It was drafted immediately after the Civil War, and it was basically just put in place so, you know, government officials that supported the Confederacy, and then this and were part of seceding, and were part of the alternative government that the Confederacy put in place in the South, could not hold office again. But there's never really been precedent for it, because a lot of the military figures that fought for the South were pardoned or something. So there's never really, and ever since then, the 14th Amendment, basically, the 14th Amendment has never been invoked. And I've been watching a lot of a YouTuber called Legal Eagle, and while he hasn't come out and said it directly, what I've come to understand is a lot of judgments in these more controversial cases tend to just lean on what's been done in the past. You know, it's like when something gets into a weird gray area, more often than not, it was handled last time. The thing is, there's never been the last time a government official organized an armed uprising was the Civil War, and the 14th Amendment wasn't before, came out in response to that, after the fact, after that had been settled, basically. They had already decided what they were going to do, and then the 14th Amendment was sort of set up as a stop guard for it. And since then, Trump's the first one who has arguably begun an armed insurrection. So there's no real I had the word and it's gone now, but there's no this would be we're literally seeing the baseline if that happens. This would be the landmark case. You hear people talking about landmark cases. They're talking about major instances where this was decided one way or another. So it's completely uncharted territory. Anyway, I'm rambling. It's later than I wanted to do this. I got caught up in a YouTube K-hole. That was actually a pleasant one. It was just Dr. Mike. Check him out if you haven't. Look at YouTube, Dr. Mike. He does cool videos. I like him. He's got a good sense of humor and great medical education. And basically, I just want to get a shower now. So I'm done. I opened this with I'm not going to rant, and then I went on a rant anyway. But the good news is, unless, more evidence comes out, this probably won't be picked up by the Senate until the day before inauguration. So you'll have at least until the 19th before I start complaining about this again. And another reason that's a good thing is I feel like, we hoped a lot of Republicans would stand up to him when he lost the election. That didn't happen. And now the hope is they'll finally stand up to him, A, now that he's lost his social media presence, so he can't just drag them on social media, but B, there's no way it'll wrap up on the 19th. I guarantee, even if the articles are taken there at that point, and are taken up on the 19th, there's no way they'll resolve that quickly. So, it will be after Biden's inauguration, and hopefully that'll be the turning point for I think we only need 15, or 12, I think it's 15 total, and they've already a couple have come out in support of it. So, like, we only need like 12 more Senate Republicans to commit to impeachment, and then they can impeach him and move on to a vote to keep him from running for office again. And again, that one's the one that just needs a simple majority vote. But anyway, that's going to be it for me tonight. I'm going to go get that shower. I'll catch